Hi, this is Hart, and I am continuing on in my Power Pack. What I'm doing is I'm taking a deck of cards. I collaged some scraps from my scrapbook paper, actually card making, but it's primarily scrapbook paper. Some of the scraps are cutouts from magazines that I've used other pieces of, and I liked it, so I left it in my scrap pile. This is a scrap from some junk mail. And so essentially all I did was cut them and collage them on. Some are simple, where it's only 3 scraps. And some use lots of tiny scraps, as you can see in the tiny little details there, to fill in the holes. And I have a whole deck of them. And now I'm moving on to the next piece, which, as you can see, is the fun painty part. Because it's so noisy with all the colors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a stack of these and choose just one color to add with a stencil. I only brought out a few different stencils with me. I have a stencil that was on the clearance from Christmas. Doesn't look Christmassy to me. I love circles, so got this from Michael's on super clearance right at, January somewhere before they did their crazy sale. And I have one from Tim Holtz, which I wish I had on clearance. Probably didn't, but I've had it for a bit. For those of you who don't have stencils, get something that has pretty print behind it. This is an offcut from a card that I made. And I just used half of the doily. So we have all kinds of stencils all around our house of things that we have. And so I'm going to use this doily to add a little bit of texture to what's already crazy texture in the background here. These paints that I have, I got them for 75 cents each on clearance at Hobby Lobby. So let's see how it comes out on my little Valentine half here. This is a good one. So I don't want to do the whole thing. So I have a dot here. That's just there, and I'm going to go around the dot to give me a circle. Add a little bit of paint. I think I'm gonna put a dabble of water on my brush because when I pick up the paint, I need a little bit more moisture in there. And that's what I was hoping for. Oh yeah, I like that. I'm doing that again. Too much water in my brush. We're always experimenting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to dabble because I want dots, tiny little dots. I didn't like how that blur is, but now I like it. So my stencil is too moist. I'm going to dry it off. I should get another paper towel for this. I'm running out of the dry spots on the paper towel. And I am just going to run along here. I'm gonna like this one, I know that. So when I pull this up, my brush is still a little bit too wet, but I'm cool with that. I'm not used to working with these paints that are so thick. So essentially, I should have experimented on a project first before using these paints. But if I don't like it, I can just gesso on it and cover it up, and that's fine. This one I love. So now I know on these doilies, when I have excess doilies, that the reverse stencil is fabulous on these excess doilies. I think I prefer regular painting to stenciling. That's okay. But why not just play and do other things? First one, I'm stenciling through. Like a normal stencil. If you don't have a stencil, find something around your house with a good print. On my last set, I used a doily. You can even use those things that your fruit comes in. All right, this is a good one. Like I said, first, I do a regular stencil going through it. Next, I'm going to set my paintbrush aside. I'm going to flip over my stencil onto one of my pages. It'll be this one, and I'm going to follow the red line. Then I just apply with as even pressure as I can that stencil with the paint side down towards the paint. So all I did was flip it over, and I'm reusing the paint on the other side. For those of you who craft all the time, this is nothing new for you, but for those of you who might be new to stenciling or painting, it's a good way to get going. Now you'll notice that it was so wet, it stuck and grabbed a piece of paper. So it depends on the kind of art you're doing, but for me, this is what I enjoy, is getting a little bit of randomness. And because it grabbed that paper and it's bright white, I'm going to use my brush and stencil that in. And so now I have a little bit of grunge that came from the other side. So you want clean. You don't want that look. That's fine. You have your paint side up again. And I have a simple one I'm doing here. Your paint side is up again. And you grab a baby wipe that's not too wet. You don't want it to be too wet. And you go over your stencil. Now what you're doing is you're diluting your paint. It's going to rub onto the page. Through the dots. And so you'll have a much fainter dot, not as bold as your painted dot. And obviously, mine was too wet. That's the result when your baby wipe is too wet. But I personally enjoy that. This background is a future art project, and why waste paint? We can reuse the paint that comes from these. I'm going to take my wet wipe. Now it shouldn't be too wet. I want to keep my stencil in one place. And the paint side is up. So what I'm doing is I'm just bringing that paint from the top of my stencil while I'm cleaning my stencil on top of another piece of paper. And you can tap it if you want that. You can rub it, it'll make it a little more grungy. So here we go. And now you'll see what that looks like if you rub through the stencil with a not so wet baby wipe. Good look, isn't it? The hard part is keeping the stencil still when you're doing that. I'm not in the mood for a stencil, So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come into these cards with a bit of black, and on each card I'll choose where to release some of the paint onto the page. So this one, I'm going to do it at the junctions. Just simple. Don't want to overdo it. This one, I'm going to do it in between this white space. And at this junction. And this one, I'm going to finish off the 3 lines. Softer, lighter touch. And this one, I'm going to add the pink paint to the bottom. Oh, no, it might be dry. Oh, maybe not. I don't know, we'll see. On this one, it has a hint of pink, so I'm trying to force the pink to come out. You see on my brush I have both. The last 3 I did, it was primarily the black because it was so thick on the surface, but now I have some pink that I have to come out. What I'm gonna do is I am going to aggressively tap. I don't want to lose that pink, so I'm not there. I'm going to aggressively tap down these 2 lines. Oh, nope, just black. I might come back later and pick up pink on this one because I really do want the pink on this one. And because it came out all black like that, I am just going to give it another one. Pie. Okay. Now each one has its first layer of paint and I need to let this layer dry. And now that the layer is dry, I have a little bit of Mod Podge sitting next to me where I just paint on the Mod Podge and then apply one of the fabulous ladies that I've chosen for the Power Pack. These ladies are inspirational and have fabulous stories, and I'm going to put the name and a little tidbit of what they've done on the back of this card. And all I'm doing here is I realize I want her to be a little lower down. I love that lace there, and I didn't want her covering too much of it. It's okay, the Mod Podge is still quite wet. And I paint a bit of Mod Podge over the top, and then I do end up covering the whole card with it because all the bits and pieces that are glued down, I want to make sure that it has a good seal on the top as well. This helps prevent it from peeling up and allows me to immediately stick the word on that I choose. In this case, I read a little bit of her history and chose the word hope. Deciding where to put it. Okay, finally I put it there. You'll notice it's not a perfect rectangle. I did do this on purpose because of all the different angles and movement on the card. I thought it would be too sharp to leave many of these words perfect rectangles or squares. And so I guess it's a little silly, but I like it that way. I should have waited for this to dry, but I'm just going to trim off that excess bit of her shirt that came down below the card. And that's it. What I have with me today is a white and a gold paint pen. And then I also have a blue Sharpie. I have my colored pencils off to the corner, but I don't have the supplies in your view because I figured I would rather have you zoomed in to the individual. So this lady is Dickie Chappelle. She's a photojournalist and war correspondent, and she didn't live quite long enough because it was only from 1918 to 1965. And so I was thinking that normally I like to outline things in black, but these ladies in some cases are just such angels that I really want to outline them in white today. And I may not do them all the same. I was about to put lines coming out the top, but I thought, no, that might look like she's got some crazy hair. But I'm thinking that perfect white line looks like I did a bad cut in a magazine or something like that. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just put squiggles next to it. Don't ask me particularly why, it's just I think I'll like that better. Once I'm done, I guess we'll see. And all I'm doing with my squiggles next to it is I'm keeping, maybe this will make it easier to see, but I'm keeping them parallel to the top. You might be able to see that better on the blue. And by doing that, gave it more of a flat top instead of spiky hair. Yeah, I do like that better. Okay, so for the word focus, I think my pen is too thick for me to make it look like highlights. So I'll come back in with the gold. I don't even know if my gold is primed. Excuse me for the crazy yellow paper here for a second, but this is about to be my drop sheet for a different project because it's just too bright and too bold for me. Takes forever to prime these things. Oh, coming down. There we go. So this one, I'll just come in. Actually, I'm thinking that's what I might do on all of them to give it some sort of a cohesion between them, is take the word with gold, highlight the lady with white, not necessarily all in the same ways. I wish I had a red paint pen, but instead I'm going to use the pink watercolor and this watercolor. And the pink is just to soften up her cheeks and give her some color. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not, but that's all. Just a hint of pink on the cheeks. Can you even see that? I'm not sure. And then on the lips, this is not coming out. Well, remember I Mod Podged it too, so there's going to be a little bit of a resist that happens to my color. But the nice thing about doing it with this pencil is it's giving it even just a little bit of dimension by putting the depression in onto the paper. Yeah, not going to work. So I'm only going to be able to color on the things that are not dark. And let me see if this darker color works. Yeah. All I did is just wet my finger a little bit. If this was for me, it would make her glasses gold. All right, that took way too long to do the first one. Let's put her aside to dry. Do the second one. Instead of making you sit and watch me doodle on each and every one of these, what I might do is just come back and share with you who they are. This is Mary Harris. And she is one of the most bold figures in the American labor movement. And essentially, her nickname is Mother Jones. She lived from 1830 to 1930, a fabulous 100 years. She was born in County Cork, Ireland. For some reason, my paint pen is not making me happy. There we go. I think I'm just going to go to the right side for this. Now I like it all the way around. In 1867, she lost her husband and her children to yellow fever, and her dressmaking business to the Chicago fire of 1871. So she became a full-time labor organizer. Her motto was pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. I like her already. So the labor movement itself became her home, as she put it, and her address is like her shoes. It travels with her. Yeah, I think I like that. She was one of the founders of the Industrial Workers of the World, and she traveled throughout the U.S. to organize miners, garment workers, steel workers, and ardent child labor abolitionists. She also led a march of child textile workers in 1903, all the way to President Teddy Roosevelt's home. So she's outspoken, unafraid of conflict. She belongs in the Power Pack. If you ever want to look her up, her name is Mother Jones. So thank you very much for coming along with me on my journey of making these Power Pack cards with these spectacular ladies. I am going to be doing another video here pretty soon of all the Power Pack cards, one after another, with all the ladies, so you can see how each was decorated. I did leave this lady in because there is something about her that just moved me, so her card is uniquely different. I didn't even speak while I was coloring her card and her face and such. And so if you haven't subscribed to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't checked out the nonprofit that I founded, and we already have a fabulous board of directors and it's well underway, then check it out at www.disabledartists.org. And other than that, thank you very much for watching.